Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice, and it's by user ThrowArray473826. Roommate calls my boyfriend our boyfriend. I, 19 female, have been dating my boyfriend Will, 20 male, for about 6 months now. I have been in relationships before, but this is definitely my first serious and healthy one, and I'm really happy with him. We met in our hometown, but we go to different universities that are about 2 hours apart. However, we try to see each other whenever we can, maybe about every 3 weeks. Usually, Will will come and visit me, because A, he has a car, so it's cheaper and more convenient for him, plus bus routes between our cities no longer exist since Greyhound shuttered. B, a lot of his courses are still online only, whereas I have in-person lectures. And C, my house is a lot nicer than his. Whenever he visits, he stays for about 4 to 5 days, which my roommates are okay with. He's also very nice and helpful. If I'm doing chores, he'll help, or he'll take out the trash, wash dishes, make me breakfast, etc. One of my roommates, Cass, 19 female, was dumped near the end of September, and since then, I've felt like she has been weird with Will. A few examples. 1. Sometimes he'll cook for me if I'm busy at school or working late at the lab. And oftentimes he'll make enough for my roommates too. Almost every time this happens, Cass makes comments about how he's so sweet and that she wishes she had someone like him and how her ex could never. Will and I usually reassure her and say she'll definitely find someone who'll treat her right, but she just looks at him expectantly. Expecting what? I don't know. 2. When he helps with manly stuff like taking out the trash, installing a hook in my room, moving heavy things, she always makes sure to linger around and comment about how strong he is and how I'm lucky to have such a fit partner. 3. Whenever he visits, we literally can't avoid her. If we go out, Kaz will ask to come with us. My roommates and I use an app to track our location for safety reasons, and when I go out with Will and don't tell her, she'll usually text me asking me where I'm going, what my plans are, if I want to hang out, etc. We try to stay in my room, but if Will goes into the kitchen or something, Kaz will always happen to wander in. We have to lock my bedroom door when we sleep to make sure she doesn't come in. 4. I'm not much of a drinker, but after our midterms, Kaz wanted to have a little thing with just the roommates. It was fun. We drank a little and watched movies. I'm pretty lightweight, so I got sloshed pretty fast, and at some point I was calling Will. And when Kaz found out I was calling him, she was like, "Is that Will?" and kept ripping the phone from my hands very aggressively. She's a lot stronger than I am, and really loudly started talking about her sex life and asking him about his. Saying crap like, "Make sure you hit it deep." This is pretty in character for Kaz, who claims to enjoy making people uncomfortable and makes these kinds of comments for shock value. But I felt like she should have turned it off around my boyfriend. She was only tipsy at this point, not really drunk. Overall, anytime he's nice to her, she'll say things like, "Haha, it's almost like you're my boyfriend." And whenever she refers to him around me, she'll call him our boyfriend as a joke. But I still feel weird about it. Will finds this all very uncomfortable and tries his best to avoid Cass as best he can or shut her down when she makes those comments. I'm not sure if I should bring it up with her because on one hand, I'm very uncomfortable, but on the other hand, I feel like she'll just deny everything or say it's all for jokes and maybe get hostile with me. Any advice appreciated. Okay, OP, my advice, you need to shut this down now. In my opinion, when somebody says, "Oh, I wish I had a boyfriend or a girlfriend like you," they actually mean, "Oh, I wish you were my boyfriend or my girlfriend." She's definitely not being subtle about it and trying to pass it off as jokes. Come on, jokes actually have a punchline. Her comments don't. If I were you, the next time she comments on anything or does anything weird like this, I would call her out immediately and very direct. I wouldn't use any language like, "You know what, sometimes when you do this, I feel like..." No, you should just say, "Hey, these comments that you're making, they're inappropriate, they make me uncomfortable, and they make Will uncomfortable." And he should back you up right away. Or also, he should be the one shutting this down whenever she makes comments at him. So what do you guys think OP should do? Let me know in the comments section what you would do if you were in OP's shoes, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. The incredible Rook says, yeah, you're gonna have to have a serious talk with her about those boundaries. Won't be easy and she probably won't take it well. But other than that, all you can do is find a new place, sadly. And Opie responds, yeah, I think I'll have to. I have some issues with confrontation and Cass is very confrontational and aggressive, so I've been putting it off, but enough is enough. The Food Has Weed in It says, I don't know if approaching this head-on with someone who seems to be teetering on the edge of logical thoughts is the best approach, and instead, I probably employ what my therapist calls the broken record method. Next time she asks to come out with you, for example, say something along the lines of what someone else commented of, no, this is our time and we are long distance, so I'm cherishing the time I get with my boyfriend alone. If you would like to spend time with me later, like after he leaves town, I'd love to do that with you. Whatever your answer is, stick to it with little variation. This is super important. Don't engage with any ludicrous or provocative comments she makes. Just continue to repeat yourself until you either get an OK or an FU or something in between, but do not budge. Do the same things when she makes comments about our boyfriend. I'm so happy that you enjoy my boyfriend being around Cass. It really helps strengthen the relationship between the two of us that he can come to visit me. So I'm glad you like him being here to visit me. And say whatever you choose as closely as you can every single time, only changing to account for context. An upfront confrontation could nuke your living situation, so I'd try this first and see what firm, unmoving, and caring reminders of your boundaries do for the situation. And Opie responds, this is a really good idea actually, and you're spot on about Cass being a little unreasonable. She's known to just verbal diarrhea when confronted. Asail Mara says, next time she says that to Will, he should say, no, I'm Opie's boyfriend. And when she says it to you, you should do the same. Make it clear, he is not, and you have to start putting boundaries in other situations too. Like when you go out and she asks to come, you should say, no, it's a date, we want to be alone, and so on and so forth. More information from Opie's comments. The only thing is they're also pretty non-confrontational and are a little scared of Cass, but I will definitely bring it up with them and ask them for support. However, Cass doesn't engage in any of these behaviors with my other roommates' boyfriends. Her making sexual comments to acquaintances or friends of friends is pretty normal, but even for her, I'd think bringing it up to a boyfriend is crossing a line. And as for her trying to get a reaction, I thought of that already. I don't acknowledge whenever she makes weird comments, and Will more or less does the same, but she continued. Okay, I think the advice the community gave was better than mine. I think that broken record technique might work for a person like Cass. If not, confront. Anyways, let's move on with the update to see what happened after this. Hey there, a couple of people were asking for an update, so here it is. I read pretty much all the comments, discussed stuff with Will, and we decided that I'd try bringing it up with my other roommates. And if the behavior persisted while he was here, we'd try our best to shut the behavior down jokingly or by using social pressure. To give an idea of the timeline, I made my original post under a week before he was supposed to visit. So the following things happened. Before his visit, I was alone with one of my roommates, Jen, and I started to bring up Cass's behavior around Will. I didn't even get a sentence in before Jen stopped me and said, I know, she's been weird. Apparently, Jen and our fourth roommate, Eva, have discussed this before, but they weren't sure if I even noticed it because I didn't seem to react. Jen is definitely the closest to Cass. We all went to high school together, but I was only really friends with Eva at the time. She said she brought it up privately with Cass after Will's last visit, and Cass just did that thing where she talks and incoherently defends herself. Eva and Jen agreed to step in if crap got out of hand with her. Cass was very excited for Will's visit and would say stuff like, oh, I can't wait to see him, or just a few more days. I have a test from 7 to 9 p.m. on his second day here, and apparently she talked to Jen about picking out a movie for the two of them to watch while I wrote my biochem test. She settled for Sinister 2 for anyone wondering. Jen said that she was out of line, but again, Cass just incoherently defended herself. Every time she made comments like that, my roommates and I would just silently give her a look and say, okay, anyways, and change the subject, which seemed to at least make her self-conscious. During his visit, the present, Kaz was all over him as soon as he got here, pouting and saying, "Where's my hug?" Jen hugged her instead, and we used this time to escape into my room. Lol. Day 2 rolls around, and as soon as I'm out of the house, she tries to get Will to watch the movie with her, saying she really wants to watch it but doesn't think she can do it alone. Will politely declines and continues to play video games in my room, and she leaves. Throughout the rest of the visit, I'm firm with her, telling her she can't come on our dates, saying she's being weird when she makes comments about how hot he is or how he's our boyfriend. Will has also done what one commenter suggested and just point blank says that he's my boyfriend and that he'll never be hers. At some point, he's so aggravated that he stopped talking to her or acknowledging her at all because he was worried he would yell at her. I've never heard him raise his voice before this. As time wore on, I feel like she got increasingly desperate for Will's attention. This is the absolute craziest part. Just now, while I was showering, Kaz went into my room, where Will is, in her underwear and bathrobe, saying she knows he's playing hard to get, but that he can't resist her. Barf. Will started yelling at her to get the F out, which alerted me and my roommates. Eva and Jen dragged a tearful Kaz out of my room. She even called me a skinny bitch on her way out. I think they're going to drop her off at a friend's house tonight. I'm just effing floored. I really did not expect her to go nuclear like this, but damn. Wow, Kaz went full on psycho on this one. Anyways, OP didn't add any more information in the comment section, but there is one more update on this situation, so let's move on with that. I saw some questions on my first update, but my post was locked before I could answer, as that was a pretty busy night, so I'll do my best to answer them now. 1. Why did I need to lock the door when I slept? Basically, Kaz would just come in and bother us, usually when she suspected we were having sex. Even if we were just chilling or sleeping, Kaz would come in and just talk to us. Sometimes she'd switch it up and just be crying. At first it seemed pretty harmless and we'd soothe her, but I grew weary as she never took these problems to our roommates. 2. Why did Will keep coming over? As I said before, transportation between our universities no longer really exists unless we have a car. My family is not very well off, so me getting a car is not feasible, and honestly, before this visit, it wasn't the biggest deal. She was just a little annoying, but it wasn't worth Will driving 4+ hours plus me missing school. So, on to the update. I talked with my roommates, and Jen called Kaz's mom. As pissed as I am, I'm obviously very concerned for Kaz, as even though she wasn't the most pleasant person before, none of us could have expected her absolutely unhinged behavior. Kaz has gone back home with her parents now. I haven't pried, so I don't know exactly what their plans are now, or how she's doing, but it seems like she'll be away for a while, as her parents came back to pick up almost all of her belongings. They'll continue to pay her share of the rent and even left some apology pastries, which was very nice of them. As awful as that experience was for Will and I, we ultimately decided not to file any kind of complaint or restraining order for the time being, as her parents seemed to have the situation under control and we didn't want to drag the issue out longer than it needs to be. I hope this is the final update. Thanks for following my story. Okay, OP, well, thanks so much for sharing, and hopefully you and Will not have any more problems with Kaz. And also, I hope she's getting some kind of help, because it does sound like she needs it. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice, and it's by user ThrowArray Kinda Freaked. I, 24 female, think my neighbor, 28 male, might be stalking me? I'm not sure and I want to ask here before I tell my husband, 32 male, because I'm afraid he might react strongly. I, 24 female, live in a pretty close-knit neighborhood. I'm a stay-at-home mom to a toddler girl and a boy who's in 1st grade. My husband, 32 male, works away from home and he's gone most of the day, sometimes overnight. I've begun noticing that the neighbor who lives on our left, who is 28 male, is around a lot more. I know he works from home, but I feel like I see him whenever I'm outside with my kids. When I go to the grocery store, I notice him leaving as well, and then he pulls back in at the same time as me. Whenever I come back from picking my son up from school, he's outside. I have a Ring doorbell and have noticed when I go right from the school to my house, around 20 minutes, he's only out for 20 minutes. He'll go right in after I go in, but if I go somewhere else or take longer, he'll be out there until I come home and then he'll go back in. I feel kind of freaked out. I have always had fine interactions with him. He always waves and everything. He works as a programmer from home and he's never done anything bad. It's just how often I see him. I don't want to mention anything to my husband because he has a pretty short fuse and I'm scared he'll flip out and go and confront him or think I'm having an affair or something crazy like that. Am I just being paranoid or does this seem like something I should mention? Well, OP, in my opinion, it does sound like odd behavior, but I don't know if that could be considered stalking. You don't mention him like oogling at you or looking through the window or anything like that. But at the same time, the way you tell the story, it doesn't seem like it's a coincidence either. The one thing that did kind of catch my attention is the fact that you mentioned that your husband has a short fuse and that you're scared he might do something or go confront him or something like that. Does this mean your husband can get physical with your neighbor just because you think he's stalking you or because he's always out there when you are? And also, why do you get the impression that your husband may think you have an affair if you're the one bringing up to him that your neighbor is out there whenever you are? I don't see how your husband could make that connection unless he's some sort of huge jealous type or something like that. So what do you guys think about this situation? What is your impression or what would you say to OP? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Vortex4 says, if you are scared that by mentioning to your husband about a stalking neighbor would result in him going off on one and accusing you of an affair, then your marriage doesn't sound good at all. You shouldn't be afraid of your husband. Though it sounds like it's another classic case of older guy in his 20s going after a teenage girl and marrying and having kids with her and she's afraid of him. And OP responds, I'm not afraid of him, lol, but I am afraid of him flying off the handle if I'm just being paranoid. Fiona the Fierce says, sounds like you have at least two problems here. One is your neighbor who may or may not be stalking you. Do you see him go to any of the places you go? E.g., does he turn up at the grocery store when you are there? Or do you see him following you in your car? Have you asked him about the coincidence that he always seems to be coming and going at the same time as you? Keep a log for a couple of weeks and see if he is really consistent in tracking you versus just coming and going, and it sometimes coincides with your schedule. The second and arguably a more concerning problem is that your husband is a loose cannon who you can't trust. You can't confide in him because you worry about violence, lack of judgment, and poor impulse control on his part directed at the neighbor and you as well, in the form of accusations about an affair. Are you safe at home from your husband? Right now, based on what you described, I am actually more worried about your safety from your husband than I am from the neighbor. Newthouse1 says, you really can't dictate how often your neighbors should be coming in and out of his house and at what times. It doesn't sound like he's done anything out of line up to this point. And OP responds, he hasn't, and that's why I haven't called the cops or anything. I'm not saying when he can't be in and out of his house. I'm asking if the pattern I'm seeing every day is odd or not. Alright, so apparently I'm not the only one that got a weird vibe about how the husband might react, but the community agrees that the neighbor is not necessarily acting in a stalking behavior. So now let's move on with the update to see what happened after this. Hello, I'm posting an update on something I posted a little over a month ago. I was concerned that my 24 female neighbor, 28 male, was stalking me. I was debating whether or not to tell my husband, 32 male, for fear of him overreacting. I decided to tell my husband about it. I just said, hey, have you noticed Trevor outside a lot? And he said no and asked me why. And I said, oh, no reason. I've just noticed him outside whenever I'm out there. And I wish I hadn't said anything. My husband immediately was like, what do you mean noticing him? Why are you noticing him? And I tried to drop it, but he kept pushing. So I eventually just told him basically what I wrote in my post, and he exploded and immediately went next door, even though I begged him not to. He went to our neighbor's door and started pounding on it and yelling. Our neighbor came to the door and knew my husband was looking for a fight because he was immediately like, you need to leave now. Obviously, my husband didn't leave, and it began a pretty serious verbal altercation and eventually physical. The police came and broke it up, telling my husband to go back home and stay away from the neighbor. As you can imagine, the entire thing was horrible. All of the neighbors were outside. We live in a pretty affluent, quiet neighborhood, so the police don't usually get called. When we got back into the house, my husband began yelling at me. He asked me if I was sleeping with the neighbor, why I had been asking about him, why the neighbor got so defensive, etc. He was so angry I didn't recognize him. He began hitting the walls and throwing things. When I tried to reason with him and tell him the situation, he began to get physical with me as well. After a while, I was able to call the police. They arrested him and I had to stay at the hospital for a bit. Right now, my kids and I have an order of protection against my husband. I have not seen or talked to him since this happened. After I came home, I went over to my neighbor's house to apologize for what happened. He told me that he had known my husband was abusive and he could hear him yelling at me and the kids. He said that the reason he was often outside when the kids and I were is that he said he felt unsure about if he was abusive or not and wasn't sure if he should say anything. He said that he used the times to say hi to us to see if there were any bruises or signs of physical injury and to see if the kids seemed alright. I don't want to reconcile with my husband. My oldest son, 6, keeps asking me why his father used his hands instead of his words. My 2-year-old keeps playing with her doll saying, "Daddy, don't hit, don't hit." It makes me want to cry. They're seeing therapists to help. Wow, so actually it wasn't a stalking thing. He was trying to look out for you, OP. I'm sorry that you had to go through that horrible situation, but the good thing is that now you're away from this man and you've got an order of protection, so that's good. So on that note, I wish all the best for you and your kids in the future, OP, and please take care. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.